I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathize with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered.
The king did not summon the royal family to ask for advice. He summoned them to hear a decision already made. Inside Buckingham Palace, Charles opened a sealed declaration and spoke a title no living royal had carried before. Catherine would become Keeper of the Crown. But as the words settled across the room, it became clear this was not merely an honor. It was an emergency transfer of trust. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles ordered the white drawing room sealed before the royals arrived. The chamber had become the center of an emergency. Only constitutional advisors, 2 trusted courtiers, and family members were permitted inside. No engagement appeared on the official diary. Royal decisions came wrapped in ceremony. This one had been concealed until the final moment. The king raised the document and read without hesitation. An emergency royal declaration was a command issued by the sovereign when normal arrangements were no longer enough. Through it, Catherine, Princess of Wales, became Keeper of the Crown, responsible for protecting royal continuity, family unity, ceremonial authority, and the monarchy's constitutional reputation. Whenever the monarch could not act fully, Catherine remained motionless. Her fingers tightened against her chair as the burden settled upon her. She had expected a private briefing, a warning about months ahead. Instead, she had been elevated before the family, and the honor felt less like triumph than a door closing behind her. William looked at his wife, then at his father. Pride came first, fear followed. The prince understood that Charles would never create such a role unless the crown faced a serious threat. His wife had not simply been honored. She had been placed between the monarchy and whatever was coming. Camilla searched the declaration and found no mention of herself. The queen consort asked whether the appointment was temporary. Charles closed the folder. The responsibility lasts for as long as the crown requires protection. He covered a second sealed file, refusing to explain what had forced him to act. The king placed the pen on the table but did not release it. Catherine watched him. "This is not a reward," he said. "It is a shield." As the meeting ended, a courtier handed Catherine a black dispatch box, a case for confidential state papers. She opened it after the door closed. The first document carried the signature of someone she had never expected to oppose. Before Catherine could understand what she had been asked to protect, she had to confront what the declaration had taken from everyone else in that room. A royal title can sound ceremonial from a distance. Inside a family, it can feel like a verdict. For Catherine, Keeper of the Crown, meant duty without escape. For William, it meant watching his wife step toward a danger he could not face for her. For Charles, it was an admission that kingship had reached a fragile moment. And for Camilla, the declaration carried a colder message. When the monarchy needed protecting, the king had chosen someone else. William followed Catherine into the private corridor outside the drawing room. The prince waited until the doors closed before asking whether she wanted him to challenge his father's decision. She looked at him carefully. The Keeper of the Crown was an emergency royal role, created to protect the monarchy's stability when ordinary family authority was no longer enough. Accepting it meant she could no longer stand quietly at the edge of a crisis. Catherine placed the insignia of office back inside its velvet case, instead of wearing it. William asked why. "Because the moment I put it on, everyone will decide what they think I have become." He heard the fear beneath her control. She heard the anger beneath his concern. Yet when he offered again to intervene, she refused. Walking away would leave Charles alone at the exact moment the king had finally admitted he needed help. Camilla returned to her apartments with the declaration folded inside her handbag. The queen consort read it once, then again, stopping at the sentence that gave Catherine power to intervene when private family conduct threatened the crown. That authority mattered because it reached beyond ceremony. It allowed the princess to mediate family disputes, protect royal symbols, secure private archives, and challenge decisions that could damage public trust. Charles carried a different burden. The monarch had created the title to protect his legacy, but he knew its existence exposed weakness inside his reign. In a private conversation with Princess Anne, recorded later in her written account of the crisis, he confessed that the declaration had been prepared weeks earlier. Anne stared at him in disbelief. The king had not reacted suddenly. He had been watching, waiting, and quietly testing everyone around him. Catherine opened the black dispatch box alone. A dispatch box was a secure case used for confidential royal and state papers. Inside were records of unauthorized palace meetings, disputed ceremonial orders, and attempts to redirect royal patronages without full approval. Several pages carried handwritten changes added after Charles had signed the original instructions. One entry stopped her completely. It referred to a private Windsor meeting called the Regency Discussion, attended by Camilla and 3 senior advisors. Neither William nor Charles had known it happened. To understand why the king created an unprecedented guardian, Catherine now had to trace the crisis back to the single night when trust inside Windsor Castle finally broke. The emergency declaration did not begin with a signature at Buckingham Palace. It began 3 weeks earlier, after midnight, behind a closed door at Windsor Castle. Charles had left a family dinner, believing the monarchy was tired but united. By morning, a ceremonial order had been rewritten, an advisor had been dismissed, and Catherine's name had vanished from a confidential continuity plan. One secret meeting had changed the balance of the household, and the king would never again view silence as loyalty. Tension had been building for months. Different royal households were competing over access to Charles, public precedence, charity leadership, and control of future ceremonies. Public precedence meant the formal order in which royals appeared, spoke, and were seated at official events. Those details mattered because rank shaped influence, and influence shaped who could reach the monarch before anyone else. Charles avoided confrontation whenever he could. The king feared another family rupture would spill into public view and weaken confidence in the crown. Catherine, meanwhile, had become the person senior relatives trusted when arguments threatened to explode. She settled disputes quietly, protected reputations, and asked for nothing in return. That restraint earned the monarch's confidence. It also made her impossible to ignore. Camilla entered the late-night Windsor meeting, while Charles rested after a demanding engagement. The Queen Consort joined 3 senior advisors to review an emergency continuity document, a private plan explaining who would control key royal duties during a crisis. Together, they approved a revised version that reduced Catherine's responsibilities while expanding Camilla's authority over palace communications and family access. Catherine received the altered pages the following morning during breakfast with William. She noticed immediately that her name had disappeared from several sections. The princess did not accuse anyone. She folded the document, placed it beside her untouched tea, and told her husband they would speak to Charles first. William wanted answers. She wanted proof. Princess Anne brought that proof directly to the king. She placed the original and revised drafts side by side on his desk. Charles's initials appeared only on the first version. The second had been circulated without his consent. A dismissed courtier later confirmed the deeper plan through a documented statement. The Windsor group had discussed limiting which relatives could brief Charles privately. That restriction would have pushed Catherine away from the most sensitive conversations, even though she stood beside the future king. Charles tore the revised plan in half, then stopped. The king slowly pressed the pages flat and placed them inside the black dispatch box. When he summoned Camilla, she did not deny attending the meeting. Instead, the Queen Consort looked directly at him and said Catherine's influence had become a crown within the crown. The hidden meeting explained the declaration, but it could not stop the collision waiting to erupt when Camilla learned Catherine now possessed every document from that night. There were no courtiers in the room, no private secretaries, no one to soften the words or later dispute how they had been spoken. Camilla entered expecting Catherine to surrender the dispatch box. Instead, she found the future queen standing beside a table covered with the records of Windsor's secret meeting. What followed was not a ceremonial disagreement between 2 royal women. It was a confrontation over loyalty, fear, and who had the right to protect the king from his own household. Catherine had requested the smaller Buckingham Palace sitting room because she still believed the crisis could remain inside the family. The princess excluded advisors, aides, and legal officials. She wanted an answer without polished language. The dispatch box, a secure case for confidential royal papers, now gave the keeper access to every draft, note, and amendment connected to the altered continuity plan. Camilla entered and asked for the documents immediately. The Queen Consort insisted the papers contained private conversations that had never been intended for Catherine's new office. She reached toward the box. The princess placed her palm firmly across its lid. Neither woman raised her voice. "You have no idea what that box will cost you," Camilla whispered, slowly withdrawing her hand. Catherine did not move. She answered that the declaration made the contents her responsibility. The keeper of the crown was not a ceremonial compliment. It was an emergency duty, allowing her to protect royal stability when private decisions threatened the institution. Those papers mattered because someone had changed the monarchy's crisis arrangements without the king's approval. Camilla's restraint finally cracked. She accused Catherine of accepting a title that placed her above Charles's wife. The queen consort said William and his wife were already shaping the future before the present reign had been allowed to breathe. The princess answered with equal control. Charles had not created the role to establish rank. He had created it because someone inside the palace had acted behind his back. Camilla admitted supporting the revised plan. She claimed the king's advisors had presented it as authorized and necessary. Her goal, she said, had been to stop William and Catherine from taking control before Charles's reign was finished. Yet even as she defended herself, the queen consort could not explain every line in the meeting record. Catherine opened one page and read the most damaging entry aloud. The note recommended filtering future health updates about Charles before they reached William. The prince could have been denied urgent information about his own father during a crisis. Camilla's face changed. She had never seen that proposal. The door opened before either woman could speak again. Charles entered holding an original handwritten instruction. The king placed it beside the Windsor notes and said the order for the secret meeting had come from someone else. The confrontation had exposed Camilla's fear. The monarch's evidence now proved the danger reached far beyond jealousy between two women. Every palace crisis creates two stories. One unfolds in public through titles, ceremonies, and carefully chosen statements. The other is written in margins, appointment books, and instructions never meant to survive. Charles had followed that second story to its source. The Windsor meeting had not begun with Camilla's demand. It began with a senior advisor who believed the monarchy should be controlled through access to the king, and who viewed Catherine's influence as the greatest threat to that control. Charles placed the handwritten instruction on the table. Sir Adrian Vale, his deputy private secretary, had ordered the late-night continuity review after telling Camilla it carried royal approval. A deputy private secretary was a senior palace advisor responsible for controlling briefings, documents, and access to the sovereign. Vale had used that position to make the false meeting appear official. The king finally understood how deeply the manipulation had reached. Vale arranged which papers crossed his desk, which warnings reached him, and which family concerns were delayed. Catherine's private honesty had weakened that control because she could speak to Charles without passing through the advisor's office. Her influence had not threatened the monarchy, it had threatened the man quietly controlling its information. Charles pushed the instruction toward Catherine. Exhaustion had made him dependent on people who promised efficiency. Shame now burned beneath his anger. "I gave him proximity and mistook it for loyalty," the monarch admitted. The words cost him more than any public confession, because they revealed that the scheme had succeeded through his own weakness. Camilla stared at Vale's handwriting and recognized how carefully he had used her. The queen consort had willingly challenged Catherine's growing authority, but the advisor had turned that insecurity into something darker. She had believed she was defending her place beside Charles. Instead, she had become both participant and shield in an attempt to reshape the crown without the king's consent. Catherine opened another file and found a confidential communication plan. It instructed Vale's office to control every family announcement if Charles became temporarily unavailable, even before William could approve it. The future king could have been silenced during a genuine emergency, while one advisor controlled the official message. Princess Anne entered with further evidence. She placed a documented security report before Charles, showing that Vale had ordered duplicate keys for an archive room containing private correspondence between the king, William, and Catherine. Anne had confirmed the order through recorded staff logs. The crisis was no longer a family rivalry. It was a developing seizure of information. Charles removed Vale's security pass from a leather folder and snapped it in two. His anger faded into sorrow as he placed the broken pieces beside Catherine's declaration. The king ordered the advisor summoned immediately. Moments later, a courtier delivered the answer. Vale had already left the palace, carrying a red portfolio containing one final unsigned royal instruction. The hidden architect had fled, but the damage he created was already spreading before Catherine could secure the crown's most dangerous missing document. By sunrise, the title Keeper of the Crown had ceased to be a private declaration. New security instructions reached palace gates. Archive access was suspended. Senior aides were ordered to surrender duplicate keys, unauthorized files, and private copies of royal correspondence. The monarchy woke to discover that Catherine now possessed powers no princess had held before. Yet the greatest consequence was not written in any order. It appeared in the faces of those who suddenly wondered whether loyalty itself was being investigated. Catherine issued her first formal command before breakfast. The princess suspended access to every sensitive royal archive until all keys, passes, and digital credentials could be verified. A royal archive was a protected collection of private correspondence, official records, and documents connected to the sovereign. Closing it disrupted palace work, but leaving it open could allow the missing red portfolio to be returned, copied, or altered. William moved quickly. The prince created a temporary coordination group joining his household, Charles's office, and Princess Anne. He made one point unmistakable: Catherine would lead the investigation independently. Even the future king would not interfere if her findings embarrassed him. Anne agreed because the crisis had already proved that family loyalty could no longer replace recorded accountability. Camilla felt the change inside her own apartments. A security officer asked the queen consort to sign a receipt for papers removed from her private office. She remained composed until the door closed. Then she sat beside an untouched breakfast tray, shaken by how quickly influence had become suspicion. Catherine felt no triumph. A longtime courtier addressed her as Keeper instead of Your Royal Highness. She asked him to use her name. He lowered his eyes and answered that the declaration left no room for informal loyalties. The title meant she could no longer comfort everyone. She now had to judge them. The investigation tightened around the missing portfolio. Security records traced it to a palace vehicle traveling toward Clarence House before dawn. Footage showed Sir Adrian Vale leaving the car without the red case. The advisor had carried it from Buckingham Palace, but someone else had received it before he disappeared. A sealed inventory exposed what the portfolio contained: an unsigned order transferring control of emergency royal communications away from William. An emergency communication order determined who could speak for the monarchy during a crisis. Even without a signature, its release could have created confusion, delayed the heir, and allowed one office to control the truth. Camilla watched guards replace the lock on an archive door she had once entered freely. She closed the curtain before the final turn of the key. Catherine then received a handwritten note from Charles, asking her to meet him alone in the palace chapel. "Before you continue," the king had written, "you must decide whether you can still trust me." The palace had accepted her authority on paper. Now the monarch would ask whether she could carry it without losing the family she had been chosen to save. There were no advisors waiting in the chapel, and no documents arranged between them. Charles sat alone beneath the royal banners, not as a sovereign delivering an order, but as a father-in-law preparing to confess a failure. Catherine entered carrying the insignia she had refused to wear. For the first time since the declaration, the crisis stopped being about authority. It became a private reckoning between two people who understood that protecting the crown might require forgiving the man who allowed it to become vulnerable. Charles asked her to sit, but the king remained standing. He explained that "keeper of the crown" came from an old family phrase for the person trusted to defend the monarchy's moral center when ordinary authority failed. He had turned that private idea into an emergency office because palace channels had been compromised, and honesty could no longer depend on who controlled a doorway. Catherine listened without interrupting. The princess now understood that the role did not place her above William, Camilla, or the monarch. Its power came from something more difficult: the right to demand transparency from every one of them. Even Charles could be questioned if his silence placed the institution at risk. The king admitted what he had avoided saying aloud. He had seen warning signs and ignored them because another public family rupture terrified him. Charles believed confrontation would confirm every accusation that the monarchy was divided and unstable. That fear gave Sir Adrian Vale room to turn private insecurity into a weapon. Catherine answered with equal honesty. The appointment had strained her marriage because William no longer knew when he was speaking to his wife and when he was answering to the keeper. Every family conversation had become a test of authority. She could protect the crown, but she refused to become cold toward the people inside it. Charles then revealed the truth through a documented security account he had signed that morning. He had recovered the missing red portfolio himself. Camilla found it hidden among papers delivered to Clarence House and brought it directly to him before palace officers arrived. The king explained that the queen consort could have destroyed the evidence. Instead, she exposed Vale's final scheme, knowing the portfolio would also confirm her role in the Windsor meeting. Camilla's decision did not erase her mistake, but it prevented the family from breaking completely. Charles asked whether Catherine still accepted the office. She opened the velvet case, removed the insignia, and placed it in his palm. Then she closed his fingers around it. "Give it to me again," she said, this time without secrets. Catherine agreed to continue under one condition. The monarch had to explain the role publicly, clear Camilla of directing Vale's full conspiracy, and face the truth without hiding it behind routine protocol. The private reconciliation had saved the family. Now the declaration had to survive the judgment of a nation already waiting for answers. At 8 o'clock the following morning, palace gates opened, and the declaration became public. Bells did not ring, and no procession crossed London, yet the country immediately understood that a historic shift had taken place. Catherine had not been crowned, promoted, or placed ahead of her husband. She had been entrusted with something more delicate: the right to defend the monarchy from threats within its own walls. Across Britain, the title inspired celebration, suspicion, and one overwhelming question: why had Charles needed it now? Buckingham Palace released the full declaration with a carefully worded statement. The Keeper of the Crown, an emergency office created to protect royal stability, would safeguard constitutional continuity, royal ethics, ceremonial integrity, and internal accountability during extraordinary circumstances. Those duties mattered, because the crisis had shown how quickly hidden access and altered documents could weaken the monarchy from within. Charles appeared beside Catherine and William to confirm the appointment personally. The king spoke briefly, but his presence removed any doubt that the decision was his. Camilla stood with them as well. The queen consort's attendants sent a deliberate message. Sir Adrian Vale's manipulation would not be allowed to leave the family permanently divided. Catherine felt the weight of the nation before she spoke. Crowds outside Buckingham Palace held flowers, handwritten signs, and photographs of the future queen. The princess paused because admiration could become another demand, and every hopeful face seemed to ask her to become stronger than any person could remain forever. William watched his wife address the country, and struggled to hide his emotion. The prince understood that this moment belonged to her duty, not their marriage. When Catherine finished, he touched her elbow instead of taking her hand, offering support without claiming any part of the authority she had earned. The London Chronicle captured the shock with a full-page photograph beneath the headline, "The woman trusted to guard the monarchy." Its editorial called the appointment the most significant internal royal reform of the modern reign. Outside Windsor Castle, a crowd fell silent as a broadcaster read Charles's documented admission that failures of access and judgment had forced the emergency action. One elderly woman removed her hat. "At last," she said, "they have chosen honesty before ceremony." A young girl at the palace barrier called Catherine the crown's protector. The princess briefly closed her eyes, then accepted a single white rose from the child. The palace then confirmed Vale's dismissal and announced that every future emergency decision would require joint approval from the sovereign, the heir, and the keeper. The country had delivered its reaction. Now only one verdict remained: whether Catherine's authority had saved the crown or changed it forever. The crisis ended not with an arrest, an exile, or another dramatic proclamation, but with the royal family returning to the room where the declaration had first been read. The chairs were arranged exactly as before. The same pen rested on the same table, yet everyone who entered had been changed. Charles had surrendered the illusion that kings could govern through trust alone. Camilla had confronted the cost of insecurity. William had witnessed his wife become a guardian, and Catherine had discovered what the crown truly demanded. Charles called the family together 1 week later to sign the Royal Continuity Charter. The document was a permanent set of safeguards requiring recorded approval before any advisor, household, or royal could alter emergency plans. It mattered because the crisis had shown how easily private fear could become hidden power when no one was required to leave a clear record. Catherine's office was defined with equal care. The Keeper of the Crown would remain an exceptional constitutional and family responsibility, not a new place in the line of succession, which is the legal order deciding who inherits the throne. Her authority existed to protect accountability, unity, and truth, not to raise her above anyone in the family. Camilla approached Catherine before the signing. The Queen Consort offered a direct apology for supporting the Windsor revision. She did not ask to be forgiven immediately. She asked only to be judged for returning the missing portfolio when destroying it would have protected her. Catherine accepted the apology without pretending the damage had disappeared. The princess told her that trust would return through conduct, not declarations. Camilla nodded because she understood that reconciliation was not the erasure of consequence. It was the decision to begin again honestly. Charles then announced that the torn continuity plan would remain inside the royal archives, a protected collection preserving the monarchy's most important private records. The king wanted future generations to see how close the crown had come to allowing insecurity to overrule lawful authority. William signed the charter after Catherine. The prince's signature carried a deeper promise. His future reign would include a partner empowered to challenge him whenever the crown's integrity stood at risk. He was not surrendering authority, he was accepting accountability. Catherine finally wore the keeper's insignia, as Charles repeated the declaration. No one reacted with shock. The title was no longer a weapon against Camilla, a replacement for William, or an admission of defeat by the monarch. It had become proof that loyalty sometimes required the courage to question, resist, and intervene. Charles offered Catherine the royal pen after the final signature. She placed it at the center of the table, where everyone could reach it. The crown had survived because silence no longer controlled it. Catherine entered as a princess, carrying an impossible burden. She left as the woman the king trusted to ensure the monarchy would never again confuse secrecy with loyalty. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.